Welcome to the Writer's Edge podcast, a platform to share conversations about the health and wellness of horse and rider. I'm your host, Farley Schweigert. Hey y'all, it's Farley with the Writer's Edge podcast, and today I get to have a conversation with DeAnna Harrison of DeAnna Harrison's Essential Oils and Acupuncture. Welcome, DeAnna. Thank you for taking the time to have a conversation with me.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is my first time to do this.
I
I'm
get that a lot on
nervous.
this podcast, so I'm used. Oh, don't be nervous. I get that a lot on this podcast, so we're used to breaking everybody's maiden podcast journey.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad that I'm getting to do it here.
So, DeAnna, what we kind of do here on Writer's Edge podcast is I let people tell their story and introduce themselves, because nobody can introduce themselves like yourself. So give us a DeAnna Harrison story.
All right. Well, I've been, my name's DeAnna Harrison. I am a certified aromatherapist. I've also studied Chinese medicine, acupuncture and acupressure, meridian therapy for about 14 years. I started back in like 05, 04, 05. I had a crippled horse, and I didn't know what was wrong with him, and drug him around the country to so many different vets to find out that there was nothing I could do. It was bone spurs on the navicular bone, and you're just going to have to learn to deal with this problem. And so I went to studying ways that I could get him out of pain through acupuncture and acupressure. And that's how I started into holistic medicine, which anybody who's been involved in acupuncture, acupressure, or meridian therapy know that that's an ongoing science. You just continually have to learn and read and study on that. You never really achieve the pinnacle in that, because there's always something else to learn. Matter of fact, the last couple of years I've been studying balance method, and that is a different method of acupuncture that helps to balance the meridians and to take out pain instantly. And so it's really worked well, horse and human. And about 5 years ago, I had a friend, Julia Turner from Idabel, Oklahoma, call me. I'd been working on her mare, and she said, between you and me and these essential oils, we're going to get this mare feeling better. And I said, essential oils? What are you talking about? She said, you hadn't heard about these essential oils? I said, nope, never heard of them. And so she went to telling me, well, being the researcher I am, I love to do that. God just put that in me. I love to study things. And so the minute we hung up, here I go looking up essential oils. And so I started there, and that was 5 years ago. And I got my certification in 19. And here I am. I've just been studying essential oils. I take each oil and break them down, and the certification program really helped me. I had a fabulous instructor, Andrea Berger, from Aroma Head Institute, and so I even passed the chemistry part of it. I amazed myself, if you know what I mean, because I was looking before we did this podcast. Went back and looked at the chemistry on it again, because it's been a year, and I'm like, oh my God, how did I pass this? And so I had to refresh myself on it, and the chemical components involved with essential oils. So many people think it's all I don't know what you'd call it, a scam, a hype, and but it's not. There is science behind essential oils. So anyway, that's where I am. I've brought you up to date, and now I'm quarantine.
Yes. So now we can have lots of conversations, since everybody's had to slow their roll and be on quarantine.
Yep. That's right. We're all in quarantine.
Well, I think it's interesting. I I do dry needling. So I've talked about on this podcast before about dry needling and the um, uh, parallels to acupuncture and not, and we've discussed that. And so, and my listeners on the podcast know I call things hippy dippy is a term I'm comfortable with when it's something that is not streamlined medicine. I tell people I sit on the hippy dippy fence when it works. I go on that side, and when it doesn't, I go back on the kind of the evidence-based side. But we do dry needling, myofascial release, different things like that. So it's I try to stay open-minded, and that's what I like about this podcast is that we can have conversations about it.
And it all works, and the thing is with the myofascial release, the meridian therapy, dry needling, moxibustion, anything you decide to do, it mostly depends on the patient, wouldn't you say? And the horse, what will work for one horse may not work for another horse. And we're all so individual, even our horses.
Yeah, I think that's what's one of the best things about being in these kind of therapy care fields, different things, is because it's taking the art of caring for an individual and the science and finding what works best for them. Because I have clients that they really gravitate towards the dry needling. I have clients that gravitate towards the class 4 laser, different things like that works better for them. But essentially, it all work, but it's taking the art of what works for that individual and helping them achieve their goals.
I agree. Totally agree.
So let's get into what I really want to kind of pick your brain about today is the essential oils, the aromatherapy, and kind of learn some more about that, because I think I think everything has its place, but and particularly in again, and I'm not making fun of the hippy dippy. I very much go on the hippy dippy side. That's just the word that works for me, because I'm like I can't explain it, so that's what I'm going to call it.
I love it. I mean, I love it. That works for me too. That works for me too.
But everything I feel like has its place when used properly, per what you're figuring out clinically, what works for the individual. So, and I think essential oils can get a bad rap because there are a lot of companies out there that are the MLM kind of companies, and you just get oils shoved in your face for this, that, or the other, and there's no explanation about it. So people like me, and definitely some of the Writer's Edge listeners, we like to at least learn some basics about it, so then we can be more informed on our decisions.
I agree. Yeah. That seems to be, what one thing that I do run into is I'll have people ask me, do you use whatever essential oils, like a multi-level marketing company? I'm not going to use any names. No, I don't. I'm not in a multi-level marketing company. I order my oils from a wholesale company that carry only certified organic oils, and have a good reputation. And that's the one thing, you have to have a good supplier for your oils. And because I have had such good luck, I don't have any doubts about my company that I order from. But yes, there are a lot of people who really don't know why they use a certain oil, and maybe this podcast will help them. The way essential oils are made, we'll just start from the beginning. And an essential oil comes from a steam distillation process. And what that is where they take maybe 10,000 pounds of, let's say, a lavender blossoms, or lavender. plant, and they will put it in these big cauldrons and bring them to a boil and cook these plants and plant parts. And the steam that comes off of this, out of these big cauldrons, they go into another pot. And in that pot, there will be the floral water, which is called a hydrosol. And then there'll be a thin line at the top of the oils that have been extracted from the plant. And to give you an idea of how much plant product it takes to make 1 ounce of oil, it takes 10,000 pounds of rose petals to make 1 ounce of rose essential oil. And that is one reason why when you go buy your rose essential oil and you see this $300 an ounce to $500 an ounce, depending on the quality you're buying, that will help you understand why the cost is so high. I always tell people that if you're given $8 for an ounce of lavender, it's not lavender. I don't care what anybody says. And a pure, unadulterated, organic lavender is going to run you anywhere from $30 to $60 an ounce. And pure oils are more expensive, especially the organic kind. And the way you know they're organic is the company you're buying from will have it will say certified organic. They have to have the certification. And then they also have to have a GCMS report. And the GCMS report that stands for gas chromatography mass spectrometry report. And what that report is that report will tell you every chemical component that's in that oil. So if the company that you are buying from does not have a GCMS report, then you have to question the quality of the oils you're using. You see what I'm saying? They're not having full disclosure. Yeah. So a good company that if you're not a member of a multi-level marketing company, or you don't get your oils from a certain place and you're not sold on your oils, a good company is Aromatics International, and it's just aromatics.com. I do order some from the wholesale side of this company, and they do have all certified essential oils. And when you go onto their website, they will have a place to click to see the GCMS reports on all those oils and also all the chemical components that are in each oil. So does that help you understand a little bit about essential oils and how the science of it?
Absolutely. Because that really is very clarifying from what you can buy at, maybe your local pharmacy to different companies. And again, we're not, I don't want anybody to, yes.
I'm not knocking any oil. No, I'm not. I'm just giving guidelines on how to know what you're buying and how to kind of get an idea of the quality of oil you're buying. What's the old saying? Good oils ain't cheap and cheap oils ain't good. You know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of, that applies to essential oils. It really does. So.
Absolutely. And again, it's we're not I'm dang sure not knocking anybody and where they get things from. I just want to kind of put a foundation down for everybody, and myself included, because I have a couple of different oils that I've been told to use for this or that, and I do when that case comes up, but I'm very ignorant when it comes to the science and the how and the why and different things like that. So now we kind of know, DeAnna, where the foundation of oil and how that works and the qualification for good oil. So talk to me a little bit more about, I don't know, maybe the purposes or how you put them together, or the science behind why we use them and why they work, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I can give you just a little bit of an idea of how I blend. You can blend several different ways. Some oils will blend wonderfully aromatically. In other words, when you put those two together, let's say like neroli, which is a floral, and lang lang, and frankincense. When you do those three oils together, you just get a magical aroma. But you're blending for aroma, smell, perfume, to be able to smell it. Then there is a therapeutic way you can blend these oils. And we'll take, and I always use this as an example, and I hope people aren't getting bored with it, but let's say like for sinuses and allergies. There is a chemical component called 1,8-cineol. And essential oils that are high in the chemical component of 1,8-cineol will be wonderful at blocking histamines, opening airways. It's a wonderful anti-inflammatory. That chemical component will work in so many ways to help you breathe better, to help your horses breathe better and your dogs, because of the chemical component in it. And the molecules that's in that chemical component, what they do is there's a membrane in your nose called the olfactory membrane. And it works like sticky paper, a fly paper. And when you inhale an aroma, the molecules from that essential oil stick to that olfactory membrane. And that's how it communicates with your body. It also goes on then to the limbic system and the cerebral cortex and affects your whole body. When you smell that aroma, and it goes and sticks to your olfactory membrane. And when you have an oil that's high in the chemical component 1,8-cineol, then that essential oil chemical component will do so many different things. Like I say, anti-inflammatory, open airways, block histamines, anything good for the sinuses and for the lungs and for breathing. But that's just that one chemical component. And like in my Allergy Sinus 2.0 blend, there's like 12, 14 oils in it. So look at all the different chemical components you're dealing with, because one oil may have 10 chemical components that work to do that thing that I've mixed it for.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So absolutely. So I think essentially what you're saying, and kind of a general foundation of how this process works, certain chemicals and certain oils are going to bind with different receptors, whether through the olfactory system. Also, I know we use oils. We can put them in feed for our horses. We can take them orally. We can put them on the skin. So whatever system it goes through, it's going to bind the chemicals. You're looking for the chemicals and the oils to bind with different receptors to have different processes work or stop working in the body, depending upon what you're wanting to look for.
Yes, that's basically it. Yeah. I know, like, let's talk about lavender. Lavender, there's like maybe 3 or 4 different lavenders. There's not just one. There's Lavandula augustifolia. There's Lavandula latifolia, coming from different different plant families of lavender. But one thing they all have in common is they're high in the chemical component linalool. And linalool is good for skin. It's good for inflammation. There's several things it's good for. Mosquito bite. And lavender is one of the few oils you can use on your body pure or neat. You don't have to have a dilution to it. You can use it neat. It and tea tree oil. They're very mild oils, and they're safe to use. I always say, always try to keep a little lavender around the house. When you get bitten by a bug or mosquito, put some of that pure or neat onto that bite, and it will take away the sting and the itch in a few minutes. For burns, because linalool oil is so good for skin and healing of the skin.
Interesting. This is making much more sense now that we're kind of breaking
Yeah,
down the foundation of everything. So
yeah.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it all has science behind it.
So
And it can also get very deep.
yeah, and I think that's what I'm so glad we're having this conversation today about the science about it, because again, people just kind of I often you get told, well, just use this or just do that. Well, I know Farrell's, for instance, mostly needs to know why. Needs to understand things.
Exactly.
And when I don't and when
I
I
agree. Why?
don't
What's it going to do? How's it going to help my horse? I totally agree. I totally
Mhm.
agree.
Mhm. So I feel like it works the same way no matter whether we're talking about human or equine or canine for that matter, because our bodies are so similar in the way that they work, that it just kind of there's not a whole lot of difference. Uh, Maybe a difference in concentrations or amounts or mixtures, but essentially the foundation is the foundation no matter what species we're talking about. Would that be correct?
That's it. That's it. And all of my oils are safe for horse or human or dog or show calf or show lamb or whatever you have, because I do have everything. All of my oils are ready to use whenever you get them. You don't have to worry about dilution. And that's one thing in the aromatherapy program that is just drilled in our brain, is we don't use oils pure. No one should be. They're just too strong to use pure. And I like to give this analogy, and it's on my website, for whenever you use an oil pure. Like, let's say you made a cup of peppermint tea out of the leaves, and it made 1 cup of tea. 1 drop of essential oil will make 80 to 100 cups of tea the same strength. That's how strong they are. And when you've got people
Oh,
putting it on themselves pure and putting it in their mouth pure, you're really, you're setting yourself up to become, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, I'm putting on the spot, so I can't think of it. To become reactive to that plant. I know that personally, I have used so many oils. I have mixed so many tons of oils that I'm kind of sensitive to lemongrass. My body does not like lemongrass anymore. So I'm really careful when I blend that, not to get it on my skin, because it kind of makes me itchy. It makes my nose itch just thinking about it. I have a little bit of a sensitivity to that. And when you start using essential oils pure, you're setting yourself up that way for that, because you're just not supposed to. You're supposed to dilute to at least a 2 to 3% dilution, and everything should be diluted. I do mix strong. I won't say I won't. I think that my instructor would probably pass out if she knew how strong I do mix, but it is diluted to safe levels. And if it's not, if it is too strong for you, you can always dilute it down further with olive oil, vegetable oil, coconut oil, any kind of oil to dilute it down, to make it go further, make it not as strong. And it also stabilizes oils too, because oils will evaporate very quickly in pure form.
but now if we were like, you would have to search out to buy pure form. Anything that is kind of over the counter market is I don't know the proper terms here, but stabilized or ready to
Adulterated.
use it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, adulterated. Like I was telling someone earlier today, was it you? I was giving you, they can make a lavender that is totally synthetic. It has the same chemical components exact as a pure lavender, but it's not pure lavender. It's a synthetic lavender. You see the difference? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
with chemical synthetics, they can make oils. that have the same chemical components and put perfume in them to smell just like lavender. But it's not a pure organic lavender from the plant. That's why you have to be careful buying cheap oils that are easy to get your hands on. That's why I always tell people about Aromatics International. I know their stuff is certified organic. It's a true plant-based oil. You're not getting adulterated oil. They have GCMS reports that tell you there's no adulteration to this oil. This is the chemical components in it. So that's the only place you have to be careful. And they're easy to find. Good oils are easy to find. You just have to order them, online, and just make sure that the company has, is certifying them.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So no, I think I'm still here.
Okay.
For those of you listening, both DeAnna and I live out in the sticks, respectively, and since we're all practicing safe social distancing measures these days, some of the connection may be a little bit less than desirable, or a little bit hard to understand here and there because it may go in and out. But we're doing the best we can with what we got. So
that's true.
Go ahead.
No, I don't. Where was I? But no, we were just. What did you last thing you heard me say? Have I been coming through?
Yeah, you've been coming through just fine. Okay. So we're all good. So let's. So I think we've kind of covered some foundation of essential oils, and I know you you have some products out that have that you have the Plus with, which has talk to me a little bit about. Could you put some cannabis oil or non-THC cannabis oil in some of these products? Let's touch a little bit on the foundation and the science behind some of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
as well, if you don't mind.
There are several different species of cannabis, and the one with THC is cannabis indica, and that's the one that has the psychotic effect on our brains. And then we have cannabis sativa, and that's what I have. It's hemp, cannabis sativa. It's a cannabidiol. There is no THC in it. It will not test. The chemical components in cannabis sativa, THC won't go through a distillation process. Does that make sense to you? It won't steam out. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. The oil that I have is, like I say, cannabis sativa, hemp. And the reason why I offer it as added a plus to some of my blends is cannabis sativa is wonderful for inflammation. It's wonderful for digestion. It's wonderful as a painkiller. It's wonderful as for nerves, for nervous problems, anxiety. That's the word I was looking for. Couldn't find it. So yeah, it's just good for so many different things. So I always tell people, when you add that, you're kind of boosting your blend that you're getting, whether it be liquid Xanax or, which is just a fun name, no Xanax in it, or your equine ulcer rescue. It just kind of adds a boost to that blend, and it kind of covers everything. You can have it put in your pain killing, like morphine balm already has it in there. The blue pain formula, you can add it to that. It's just a good essential oil, and mine is an essential oil. It's steam distilled, not cold pressed. A lot of times what we buy at the health food store and stuff, they're cold pressed oils. And there's a big difference in that. I do have cold pressed in it too, but mine's kind of both. It has, mine is both. It has the essential oils, and then I have it diluted down with the carrier oil of hemp, which is cannabis sativa, but the cold pressed kind. Does that make sense? Am I talking too fast?
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. I'm keeping up and learning and just trying to keep everything straight in my brain, and so I love
Right.
it. It's great.
A lot to take in what, 20 minutes?
Yeah. No, we've covered a lot in a short amount of time. I love it.
Uh-huh. But that is a difference. That is what the cannabis sativa is added for, and it's just, and you can get it just pure. You know, that you just want cannabis sativa. You don't want it in another blend. I can do that too. You know, it's just whatever you decide. I have a lot of people that use it. They'll take like 5 drops on their tongue 3 times a day for pain, arthritis. I have people giving it to their horses for arthritis or any other kind of mystery body pain. I know the morphine balm is wonderful for that also. I always tell people when I developed morphine balm, I think in 2018, and it was like in April. And the horse I had bought him as an 8-year-old, and I thought he was broke better than he was, and he wasn't broke very good. And it just took so long, and I couldn't get him to try to work. I couldn't get him to run. I couldn't get him to do nothing. He had no ambition whatsoever. And I had really thought about just, putting him on the road because he just wasn't. I'd given him EPM treatments, and I started him on that morphine balm after I developed it. And in 2 weeks after starting on it, I went from like running and loping the 40 pattern to hitting the 2D. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, then I was scared to give it to him 1 time a day. I kept him on 2 times a day for 2 months, but it really changed him. And he started working. I started winning in a little bit. He still wasn't just wonderful, but it was a lot better than it was. And then I took him to the vet in July, to another vet, and this vet found he had bone spurs on both knees, and I had no idea. And he had started working with bone spurs on both knees. Well, then, I started my bone spur formula. I developed that, and we got some of the bone spurs broke off. So ended up last year at this time, he won 3rd in the 2D average out of 700 entries at the Lucky Dog. So he really started working great for because he still deals with his problems. He still has his issues, but he really has come a long way by getting a correct diagnosis. And, that's the thing about treating a horse with oils or anything. You have to have a correct diagnosis. And once you figure out, I got to know where to put the moles, So once I had figured out what it was really wrong with him, it really come together good. Yeah, we were still talking about the morphine balm. It made a world of difference in my horse, and then people started really seeing a difference in their horses. So I think the number one thing is just getting a correct diagnosis so you'll know how to treat what's going on with your horse. Trust me, I'm not anti-vet. I'll haul them all day to the vet and to try to find out what exactly is wrong if it's something that I don't see results from in a week or 2 after starting on an oil. And if I can't figure out what it is, we go to the doctor and try to get a correct diagnosis so I'll know how to help treat it.
Well, and I think that's what's key, and that's what I really enjoy about this conversation today, is that we're not talking about using oils and being able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
I
we're
wish.
talking about we're talking about something that we're seeing results that is in addition to, and sometimes it becomes a primary thing, as you've illustrated in your stories, but it's we're not talking about a either or. We're talking about in an addition to, and having the correct diagnosis throughout your team, because it takes a team, whether you're talking about equine or human. It takes a healthcare team to help people get to their goals.
Mm-hmm. I agree we got to have those vets helping us figure out what's wrong and how to treat it.
Absolutely. It's my my horse has been on the ulcer rescue for probably a week now, maybe, or I don't even think it's been a week, but I told you and I told Donna Kay, I was like, I might be crazy, but I think he's cribbing less. Now, he hasn't stopped cribbing by any means, and cribbing's a complicated issue, but I'm like, he's cribbing less, and he is. Like, I watch him like a hawk now. And so, it's just, that's kind of, was a lot of why I wanted to talk, because I was like, wait a minute, let's have a chat about how this works so I can make sure it makes sense in my brain.
I know that's right. Figure out what the heck's going on around here, huh? That equine ulcer rescue blend, it has an oil. I can't break down all the essential oils that are in it because there's about 9 or 10. But one of them that is in it is called anise seed or anise. And it is from the chemical family of esters. And it has a chemical component in it called anethole. And anethole is wonderful for digestion. It's a chemical component that helps calm the gut. It's an antispasmodics. I think that they end up having spasms in the gut from pain and stuff. It also reduces gas and acids. And so chemically, it does help the gut. It balances digestion. It helps to heal ulcers. It just makes them feel better. As you can tell, your boy feels a little better with it.
Yeah, because even when we talked and you suggested using it, I was like, oh, we'll try it, because I haven't treated him with UlcerGuard or omeprazole either way. We have gone through different feeds and have him on a pretty ulcer-friendly ration at this time. So I didn't really feel like that was an issue. But ulcers are so sneaky, as we know now, that I was like, oh, because we had changed the ration, and that had been, a year and a half, maybe even 2 years ago now. So it really wasn't something that had crossed my mind.
Yeah. And with ulcers, as with bleeders, you have to pull out all stops when you're treating that. You can't do just one thing. You can't say, well, this is what I'm doing and that's going to take care of it. No, not necessarily. I have people that I have several respiratory oils for horses, and people say, well, do I need to continue to keep them on, lost it. Lasix. Do I need to keep them on Lasix? And I'll say yes, keep them on Lasix. You don't want them to bleed at all costs. If you have to put them on Lasix and 10 other things, that bleeding is so scary. Dr. Loudermilk, a track vet at Louisiana Downs before he retired, I used to take. He's an acupuncturist, a chiropractor, and a vet, and I would take my horses down to him and just listen to him, and I would just question. I know he'd get so sick of me because I'd ask him a million questions, and one of them was about bleeding. I had a friend went with me, and her mare was bleeding, and he said to her, you can't do anything until you get this bleeding under control. He said, I have seen horses die from the blood get into the lungs, and he said, and do autopsies and their lungs be full of foam. He said, you cannot do anything until you get bleeding under control. So it's something that you just have to pull out all stops. And in the same way with ulcers. If you need probiotics, my oils will help. The grains you feed, the hay you feed, you need to be very mindful of all of it, because one thing a horse is not going to do is you can't train pain. And if a horse is hurting because of their gut, from nerves causing all that bile, and that might be all it is. Your horse may not have ulcers, it's just whenever they get excited, they start producing more bile and gases and stuff, and it makes their belly hurt. Who knows? But unless they're scoped and you know for sure, and then you can't never know with hindgut, you can't scope that. So anyway, I always tell people, just do everything you can when it comes to ulcers or bleeders. You just can't do enough.
Yeah. And last week I talked to Jim and Hannah of Flare Strips, and we talked a lot about bleeders. They did a great foundation, or no, 2 weeks ago rather, but we did a great foundation on bleeders, and talking through all of that, and it just was a fabulous conversation, because it is a very complicated issue, and I think particularly in more so in the Western industry than even the racetrack, we have a terrible handle on it, and a terrible way, pretty much across the board on how we are dealing with it. And I think we need to kind of restructure some of our thinking and how we take care of our animals.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. We need to really be more mindful of it. I think a lot of our horses, they won't bleed out, but they'll swallow it. And you got a horse that's performing poorly and you just can't figure out what it is, you might need to look at bleeding and ulcers. One of those two things. I really believe that.
So you have a lot of different products to go through on the respiratory side as well, that we can use in addition to working with our vets and rest of our team.
Yes. Yeah. I have the lung healing formula. Though the essential oils in that blend are mostly conifers, and conifers are they work as natural steroids. They're not steroids, but conifers are like pine and black spruce and your fir needle. That's all. They work as natural inflammatories and natural steroids. And then in the Allergy Sinus 2.0, the essential oils there are great antihistamines. They're high in that 1,8-cineol that I talked about earlier, that chemical component. And it also has a blend called helichrysum an oil, not a blend, an oil called helichrysum that in essential oils is called immortal. It's just good for so much. It's just a healing, wonderful essential oil. And then, let's see what else. And then the Mega Air, I think Donna Kay, her favorite is the Mega Air. She always runs on that. It is a blend that has honey in it, and it also has some extracts in it, not all essential oil. It has some plant extracts. They're like tinctures. They're different than an oil that's in there mixed with honey and essential oils. And so, yeah, that one you just use like 30 minutes before run to open air ways real quick. That's called Mega Air. Don't rub it on. It has honey in it. Okay. You'll wish you hadn't. That'll get sticky.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that won't work out very well.
Like, oh, I'm sorry, it has honey in it. Don't rub it on. That's funny.
Well, DeAnna, if there's one of our listeners out there that is going, okay, this is very interesting. How do I figure out what works for my horse and my situation? How would they get in touch with you? How would they go about doing that process?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me on Messenger. You can go to my website at deannasoils.com. You can call me anytime. My phone number's on my website. Send me a text anyway.
Awesome. Awesome.
I'm glad to talk to you, and we'll try to figure out a plan and see if we can help your guy or girl.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to visit with me today. I really appreciate it.
And I appreciate you asking me.
And we'll probably have conversations again down the road because there's plenty of things I think that you and I can talk about.
Oh, yeah. We can talk for a while, huh?
Oh,
That's
all
for
right. Thank you
sure.
guys for
Well, thank
listening.
you. Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
guys for listening to the Writer's Edge podcast. Thanks, DeAnna. Thank you for listening to Writer's Edge podcast. For show notes and other thoughts, head over to writersedgetherapy.com. If you would like to stay connected and continue the conversation, head over to my free Facebook group, Writer's Edge Health and Wellness for Horse and Rider. Thanks for continuing the conversation, and as always, I will see you down the road.